Memoir with Arizona Springtime, Memoir of a Journey. This is Chapter 12, A Desert Scrub Mystery. It is commonly believed that desert mammals are not as migratory as the birds of the desert. Some mammals do migrate, but it is not the same type of migration as for birds. Admittedly, it is more efficient to fly over a landscape than move over the ground. To compensate, mammal migration over a long distance may take generations, as ecosystems can transform and local climate changes. Some predators that cover a large territory will migrate over time. Research now is being conducted to determine how desert animals move across the international border. Many other desert mammals have adapted to local desert life with varying adaptations such as hibernation, estivation, moonlight, hunting, and foraging. There is a desert animal that appears to be well suited to desert life. They do not truly hibernate, but enter torpor in early winter. Generally, they live below 4,000 feet in elevation, and we're probably near the upper limit for these low desert specialists. The unusual diurnal rodents can be seen on our property romping around. Young round-tailed ground squirrels will play with their siblings. Their mothers can accommodate up to 10, usually born in May. After they've finally left the nest sometime late May or early June, we watch siblings rolling around with each other over the dusty open ground. The adult mother will stand up. She is 9 to 10 inches long on hind legs on a small rise, searching the area for threats. She stands with her front paws held up to her midsection and her fingers grasped downward. Round-tailed ground squirrels have unusually large, oval, expressive eyes that are reminiscent of the big-eyed paintings of Margaret Keane. The mother weighs about 6 ounces, give or take, and she is completely covered in fur. A mother can often be seen on the ground under the bird feeder gathering up as many seeds as possible. She will stuff seeds in her mouth and then view the area standing up like an African meerkat. Closer to home, if there is a perceived threat, an adult female will warn nearby pups with a high-pitched whistle, but I've never heard it. Then, multiple families will stand up to look, or all of them will dash to the closest hole, never far away, to disappear into the ground. The females gather in areas to raise young separate from all adult males. Bachelors do not cross into the territory of the females. The adorable rodents have a long-standing history of engaging people. Desert ecologist Edmund Yeager roamed the desert, and along the way he picked up stories of desert animals being kept as pets from a variety of places, such as remote mining camps, or in this case, a World War II hospital. Yeager was told the story by a friend of his being assigned to a training center for men that were in the desert to convalesce. Yeager's friend had set up a small zoo of desert animals. The favorite animal among the soldiers was the round-tailed ground squirrel. Their natural antics amused the men on their way to recovery. Often, we spot the squirrels along highways and roads. They have the unfortunate ability or disability to run in front of cars. This is not a new phenomenon. Even Yeager noted the behavior decades ago. He lamented that the squirrels scamp in the road and, quote, not too adeptly, unquote, as his automobile approached. Yeager also noted something I have not seen. For example, that the squirrels will feed upon others that have been run over. The round-tailed ground squirrel is relatively new to our area of southeastern Arizona. The ground squirrel migrated about 100 years ago to help fill in an ecological gap previously filled in by the formerly widespread black-tailed prairie dog. Historically, the county placed bounties on the prairie dog, and tens of thousands were killed until local extinction. It was believed prairie dogs were a threat to cattle. Ranchers believed that cattle walking over prairie dog mounds would break through the surface and break a leg. Today, the squirrel burrows can be worse. Some burrow tunnels are close to the surface, and I have to keep an eye on the ground during local hikes because the weak structures can collapse underfoot. We have an ebb and flow of these pleasant rodents. This past spring, there were about 20 of the squirrels on our property. Then They disappeared by the end of June. The rodent family near the feeder disappeared. Another family of squirrels in the side yard had moved from their original burrow to another one about 50 feet away. The mother carefully held onto each of her pups with her mouth and quickly scampered across one small hill to an area lined with piled rocks. Soon after the move, she and her young ones disappeared. Another nearby family group that lived among some prickly pears and had many young also disappeared. We realized one day, they're all gone. Where did they go? Who are the suspects? The first suspect is considered by some Native American peoples as the trickster. The mythology, folklore, and stories surrounding the trickster are varied and deep. Coyote is the trickster of the stories. Among several supernatural traits, the animal is believed to possess in its ability to shapeshift, that is, to change from a human form into an animal form. Coyotes are now widespread across much of America after the eradication of the wolf. The wolves used to control coyote populations within their territories. They will kill all coyotes, including pups in their dens. That used to keep the numbers of coyotes in check. Now there is no check, so coyotes are free to expand their previously constrained range, and they have. They're one of the few large mammal species that have been successful under the current wildlife management policy. I've come across coyotes during many hikes in the desert and after school walks. Encountering a coyote is always a wake-up moment. Upon seeing one coyote pair, my casually scanning eyes became focused. It was akin to any important moment in life, a visual document that is placed in the mind to recollect later many times. The pair I came across bisected my path just yards ahead as I followed a deserted farm road. Except for a quick glance in my direction, they never changed pace nor direction. A large, healthy male was trailed excuse me, by his slightly smaller mate, shadowing his right shoulder. They entered the road from the thick, brushy mesquite and tall grasses and weeds and left to enter the same type of vegetation. Another coyote I saw during an afternoon walk was loping along a wide, pale tan dirt road fully bathed in hot springtime sunlight. That especially large coyote never did see me. I observed the wild canine for quite a while. He stopped every now and again to look off the road and into the sideline of brush. He was on the prowl. His healthy stature meant it was a good year for small rodents, or a bad year for the prey. He did not flush anything, though, but for a while he continued his hunting pace. Many times, driving along at 65 miles an hour on the state highway, I see lone or paired coyotes crossing the road. As soon as the coyote spots my car, it will bolt directly away from the road. The coyote, more often than not, will turn to look back over his shoulder and then will disappear into the brush. Their dawn, dusk, and nighttime songs alone could evoke folkloric stories. Coyote calls have been variously described as barks like a dog, yep, 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 yee, 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 a long shrill, on. Many people have tried to describe the voice of the desert in words. Hearing the yips, yells, barks, and yodels, I think of wildness and wilderness while in desert or forest. I stop to listen as pups join their parents. Then high and low sound voices intermingle and pierce the air until another family or loner answers from a different direction. The calls begin hesitantly, then gather momentum. The vocals will go on for a while, then suddenly end. I never tire of the auditory experiential encounter. A coyote will eat just about anything it can get its mouth on. They feed on a variety of small mammals, insects, bird eggs, birds themselves, carrion, and reptiles. In game country, coyotes will feast on turkeys and ducks. They will feed on ground-dwelling birds such as quail. They can also eat possums and skunks, as well as human-made food trash. Coyotes will kill foxes in their territory and any bobcats. Near towns, they can even take cats and dogs. Poultry is also victimized by coyotes, but there is a long list of predators for kept birds. Can we determine if the coyote is the most likely suspect in the disappearance of the local ground squirrels? Coyote scat is evident anywhere out in a desert along a trail or off trail. It is one of the easiest identifiable ways to know if a coyote is or was close by. I always observe that the scat is full of dark rodent fur. For many years, coyotes have not visited the interior of our town. They used to come through town under cover of dark and left their telltale scat. Surprisingly, yard dogs were never a deterrent for a coyote that wanted to visit our town. Town-wide dog counts were as high as 38 barking dogs for 32 humans. Now, dog counts are low, with only 9 in town. The coyotes used to come to the edge of town to harvest the high numbers of available kittens. Now there are no kittens. The kitten lady passed away, and no one took her place. We can take coyotes off the current suspect list. A great horned owl is the largest of the southwest desert owls. This avian night species specialist stands 2 feet high and has an impressive 4-foot wingspan. At night, if an owl is close to the house, we can hear its call. We can see its silhouette through our room-darkened windows, often outlined against the night sky, perched on the top of a power pole. The owl is distinguishable simply because of its large size. The owl will fly in effortless silence as it glides in for a kill. It'll eat many kinds of small mammals and can prey upon animals up to the size of a skunk. The ground squirrel is diurnal, so it is doubtful that the great horned owl, which has so many other nocturnal rodents to choose from, is a suspect. The bobcat is found throughout Arizona, including the desert scrublands, but the wildcat is adaptable to diverse ecosystems, including grasslands and woodlands up to about 12,000 feet. Bobcats are very impressive to see. One spring, I saw a mother guiding her trailing kittens across a 2-lane highway. She was heading in the direction of a nearby conservation area near the power plant. At first sight, I thought I was seeing a very large domestic cat. Given the location, my mind attempted to resolve the matter. I took note of her size and realized I was watching a wild animal going about her life. William Carr, once the director of the Sonoran Desert Museum in Tucson, described an encounter with a bobcat. As he drove at night along a dirt road, a bobcat ran into the road ahead of the car. The headlights caused the cat to stop briefly. Then it jumped and ran to a rise off the road where Carr observed its silhouetted form against a nearly black sky. The cats are so impressive that memories of the moment became ingrained. I can share Carr's excitement because I have joined him in knowing the experience. A bobcat's range of territory is 4 to 5 square miles. She can stalk and take down a wide variety of prey, including birds, rabbits, and mice. When she attacks smaller prey, she will ambush from behind and, typical of many large cats, close down on the prey's head. For larger animals, she will attack from behind as well with her fangs aimed at the throat and neck. She was once thought to be a nocturnal hunter, but she is not. She hunts during the day if the amount of moonlight is below 50%. She is especially affiliated with the presence of rabbits. We have an ebb and flow of desert cottontails. I have seen the results of a bobcat kill. A neighbor's rooster was completely gutted, only head, legs, and feathers remained. It is likely she had her kittens with her because in the next several weeks, chickens became bobcat meals. We finally spotted her via our trail cam on our property 2 years later. We only use it to identify wildlife. The next suspect is a larger mammal that is claimed to have been around the town many times. Sightings of mountain lion tracks have led to spurts of activity around town, nearly always after a rain. But every time, without exception, when I have seen the tracks that the townsfolk had spoken of, they are large dog paw prints. Dogs stepping in mud will leave paw prints that are enlarged and spread outward. They always leave distinctive claw marks as well. Even so, that never stopped male members of one clan from donning their camouflage, grabbing their rifles, heading out before sunrise to hunt down the mountain lion. They were never successful because there never was a mountain lion. Even in mountain lion country, the large elusive cats are rare to observe. There is no doubt that the felines reside in the mountainous areas of these remote sky islands. From a food standpoint, the mountain lion prefers to prey on jackrabbits, cottontails, raccoons, javelinas, skunks, and deer. Ground squirrels do not really need to worry about this predator. The next suspect is a reptile with a bad reputation. Many years ago, I lived on the north side of Scottsdale when Gainey Ranch was still a real horse ranch. Now it's the name of a development. My brother Kenton was walking around in the desert on the ranch late one spring morning and found small pencil-sized snakes. He returned to the house and told me about the snakes, and I followed him to an area only a quarter-mile away from our house. He took me to an unobtrusive spot with a 1-foot diameter hole in the ground. Deep in the hole was the unmistakable arched brows, coal-black eyes of a female western diamondback rattlesnake. Her young ones were outside of the den while she enjoyed the cool of the cave-like depression. She never moved, nor rattled her tail in warning. She was motionless except for her darting tongue. She was testing the air. She was my first encounter. Years later, we have moved into the rural area of Arizona. It is an area where every resident has had encounters with the diamondback or the latest newcomer, the Mojave rattlesnake, only here within the past 100 years. I can also be counted as having had an encounter in our area. It was mid-May and early one morning at 5 a.m. I left the house to enjoy an early morning walk in the desert. In the mid-level elevations, during early morning hours in the arid desert, it can be cold. As I left, I heard a family of coyotes calling from hills about 2 miles away in the direction I was walking. It was a great start for a hike. Later, now a mile from the hills, I arrived at an old official survey marker stuck into the ground, close to a former pioneer chicken ranch. I looked ahead to a creosote forest that covered square miles. At that moment, I nearly stepped on a fully coiled, 4-foot-long diamondback. I took 2 steps back, but there was no movement except for a flicking of its tongue. That was a close encounter. Soon after that, I was enjoying the coolness of another early morning walk. This time I was walking along a cattle trail through waist-high mustard weed, and a 4-footer suddenly rose in front of my booted feet. Its head rose far off the ground to a striking position. Then the distressed snake began to rattle its tail. It is unusual to see a rattlesnake take such a defensive stance. I attributed its crankiness to the cold of the early spring. It may have just left its winter burrow and was desperate for food. I decided to turn around and make a beeline to the main road. I decided there would be no more off-trail hiking in the waist-high vegetation. There was no drama during the return walk home. Along the way, I found a desert tortoise slowly walking along the road. A meadowlark sang from its perch on a mesquite fence post. On the outside of the lane were multiple hoof prints of differing size, dug-up roots of plants, and scat full of unprocessed mesquite beans that told the story that a family of javelinas had recently been there. Amidst the thick mesquite, I discovered in a small open grassy area the remnants of an old car. The lightly rusted 1929 Chevy sat heavily on the desert floor. The motor well had no motor. Its running boards were still intact. The passenger compartment had no floor and no roof, but the car's doors were open as if an excursion party had just left the car. Although the walk was punctuated with an unexpected encounter with a rattlesnake, the other sightings made the walk whole. A walk I can remember because of a series of experiential moments. Our town is surrounded by wildlands, and there are enough sightings of rattlesnakes to know that they could be a suspect for the disappearing ground squirrels. Another common snake seen in our area is an enemy of the diamondback. The gopher snake, or bull snake, has lighter skin color than the rattler, but an evolutionary adaptation resulted in a camouflage pattern similar to the diamondback. Even the tail is banded like a diamondback. A quick glance at the end of the tail, and I can see if the rattles are absent, then it is a gopher snake. The gopher snake is vital to control of local rodent populations, and it is the top suspect in the case of the disappearing round-tailed ground squirrels. They also usurp rattlesnakes in a territory. After author Edward Abbey arrived at Arches National Monument for his position as ranger, he had a problem with a reoccurring midget-faded rattlesnake around his trailer. He eventually took a long-handled spade and relocated it. Soon, a gopher snake arrived and began to hang around the trailer. Abbey knew the new arrival would solve his problem with mice running around inside his assigned trailer. He captured the gopher snake and brought him into the trailer house. During the few days he kept the snake, he observed that he would curl up like a cat near the heater during the day, and then at night he went looking for mice. Sometimes Abby would pick up the snake and tuck him inside his shirt. The snake often curled up, content to spend time against the warm body. If Abby left the trailer to go outside, he would also hang around the trailer. Abby considered that he and the snake had become friends. One day, he let the snake outside and never saw him again. That is, until late in spring, when he went outside and saw the snake with her mate. Gopher snakes are definitely on the list of suspects because they are specialists in seeking out the burrows of the ground squirrels and other desert rodents. Our last suspect is the gray fox. The first time that either of us saw the fox, it was my wife who spotted the quick-moving creature. A light, reddish-blonde furred canine dashed over the ground as she watched from the kitchen window. The next day, as she spotted it, she called for me and I grabbed the camera. The photo was blurred, but the fox darted through an open area. The fox was most likely out during the day to find food for her kits. She needed a ready source to feed them, and she is very adept at capturing ground squirrels as well as desert pack rats and gophers. She is the only canine that can climb trees to ambush prey from above. Many years ago, Edmund Yeager, an intrepid desert traveler, came across an old prospector who had captured a baby fox. He had found the fox trapped in a box trap. These simple traps are made with a box and a single entrance with a trigger that will close the entrance. After the kit became accustomed to the men in camp, it relaxed enough to the situation to begin to play. The young fox tested many items in the camp by grabbing for old shoes, blankets off the bed, or sticks readied for the campfire. In all those cases, the kit would chew and pull apart the object. After a while, as it matured, the fox began to stray from camp. Many times, the fox would go into the desert and return days later to the great relief of the miners. Although such stories are historical and easy to discount, they reveal how a wild fox tamed a group of otherwise difficult men. Some residents in parts of the United States may take for granted the sightings of a fox or other apex mammals. In our area, most of the apex mammals are extinct, except in the surrounding mountains. Each sighting on the lower elevations means that the ecosystem is on the verge of recovery. Each mother fox raising her kits here, teaching them, will mean the fox can become reestablished. We can conclude, while she was here, the town was swept clean of ground squirrels. Unfortunately, this time around, there was no evidence of a fox. There are 3 reasonable possibilities on our limited list of suspects in the disappearance of all round-tailed ground squirrels from our property. A mother bobcat hunting to feed her kittens is a top suspect. A rattlesnake or gopher snake, or a plague from disease can be considered as primary suspects. Other suspects we did not consider include birds, such as thrashers, roadrunners, and hawks, because we did not observe any birds attacking the local population. That's the end of the chapter. See you again soon for the next one.